Rioting in Crown Heights, Los Angeles, and 500 other places around the world brings to mind the meaning of the name of Noach's son Cham, from the word chom, heat. Although the least of his brothers to have been worthy of being saved from the flood, Cham must have been a very great man, and his name foretold of his destined derech in serving the Creator. As Rav Hirsch says, Cham through the heat of emotional passion and excitement. But already in Noah's Ark, by having prohibited relations with his wife, Cham was found to be wanting in comparison to his brothers. The heat intended for Avodas Hashem had become warped into the incandescent heat of degenerate licentiousness. Vayah Cham avi Canaan es ervas oviv, and Cham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father Noach. The Tanchuma relates of the physical punishment that Cham underwent as a result of this, and his subsequent performing of a sexual atrocity on his father Noach. Cham's skin color changed, his eyes became bloodshot, his lips thick, his hair fuzzy, and he walked around starkers, benuded, traits that were all passed on to his descendants. Some identify Cham with the famous ancient leader Hammurabi, which means master of the family of Cham, Hammurabi. Ham's grandson Nimrod taught his brothers extreme aggressiveness, and they subjugated the entire world population into building the Migdal Bovel, the Tower of Babel. Providence ordained that another of Cham's sons, Canaan, was the only nation to retain the usage of Lashon HaKodesh after the division of the languages, in order to be able to serve the Bnei Yisrael hundreds of years later. When the children of Israel entered the Holy Land in the year 1272 BCE, they found to their surprise that the indigenous Canaanites also were speaking a beautiful Hebrew. Arur Canaan Eved Evedim Yeyeh Le'echov. Accursed is Canaan, a slave of slaves will he be to his brothers. In order to remedy Cham's evil character traits, which were greatly accentuated in the immoral Canaan, Noach actually blessed him that he should come under the influence and servitude of others that are better than him. Many Canaanites profited greatly by reason of this servitude. For example, Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, Tabi, the slave of Rabbi Gamaliel, and the maidservant of Rabbi Yehuda Hanossi. Canaanite slaves were all circumcised, being called sons of the bris, sons of the covenant, and they observed the Torah laws that are applicable to women. Canaanite slaves belonging to a Kohen were able to eat truma, something that a regular Israelite, even an Israelite king, are prohibited. Many Canaanite slaves thereby gained Olam Haba, the afterlife. It is when Cham's descendants are free to gratify their negative traits, that's when they start to do harm to others, and even more to themselves, as recent events have shown. Hashem's plan is to put the most virtuous of the seed of Shem together with the least virtuous of the seed of Cham in order to serve as a role model for mankind in highlighting the great moral difference between them, and also so that they can be of mutual help to each other. Indeed, the Kabbalists say that Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, was only given in order that the Jews should cleanse and sublimate out of it the 7 bad midas, the 7 deadly sins, which are anger, greed, envy, impatience, impudence, indolence, and lust. These 7 deadly sins originate from the original Canaanite nations that dwelt in the land of Canaan, and they derive their vivification from the Olam HaTohu. This helps to explain the very agitato atmosphere of Israel, the state of Israel to this day, as all these traits are still accentuated in Israel more than in any other land. As the Shlor stated, a person who lives in the land of Israel must never forget its original name, the land of Canaan, Eretz Canaan. Hachno'o, chno, means servitude and submission. And the Gemara states in Baba Basra, Avira da'ara Yisrael machkim, the air of the land of Israel makes one cleverer. But as the Satmar Rebbe warned, remember that the Yetzer Hara is also cleverer in Israel. At the time of Yehoshua's invasion, many of the Canaanites, such as the Girgashites, fled to Africa, says the Gemara, as archaeology has confirmed. Shem took Asia, Yafes took Europe, and Cham took Africa, Abarbanel. Canaan's last will and testament to his descendants was, love one another, love robbery, love lewdness, hate your masters, and do not speak the truth. Unfortunately, the subsequent behavior of the Hamitics has largely borne this out. The Sinites, referred to in Bereshis 10, are the progenitors of the nations of the Far East, i.e. the Chinese, the Japanese, and the Korean peoples. Those supremacist, elitist countries would undoubtedly be rather nonplussed if they realized the ramifications of the common lineage that they share with other Hamitic lines. Kedusha attracts Klippa, as can still be seen today by the Hamites, who somehow always end up clinging to the Am Yisrael, willy-nilly. For example, the Palestinians, who are basically of Canaanite stock in Israel, and the Hamites in the USA and Britain, for example in Bedford-Stuyvesant and Hackney, neighbouring Crown Heights and Stamford Hill. In ancient Babylon, Chazal were amazed how the Gentiles of Massa Machasya witnessed regularly the glory of the Torah, and yet not one of them converted to Judaism. And today? Yet the Hamites can be positively influenced. For example, the World Chabad drug outreach programs. They work hand in hand with moderate Muslim Hamites, especially in New York, to fight rampant drug abuse with great success in a brave attempt to forestall the reoccurrence of another Crown Heights-type pogrom. It has been found that in those states in the USA where the education departments make creation science compulsorily taught side by side as an alternative to the theory of evolution, unlike other states where it is compulsorily forbidden, Hamite high school students turn out to be the most enthusiastic believers in the Creator and models of good behavior. A pure Hamite is meant to be a proud representative of his branch of mankind. But the grand attempt by misguided social engineers in the West to overly miscegenate the races has resulted in a burgeoning generation of perplexed and vexed, chip-on-the-shoulder, dysgenic, Caucasoid, Hamite, Melanesian, Indian, Amerindian, Australoid, Polynesian, Mestizo, Mulatto, Mongoloid, coffee cream Untermischungs with undesirable social repercussions. Lo aleinu. Dysgenics is the gradual running down in the caliber of the human gene pool due to Rassengemisch and other effects. Hashem delights in the converse of dysgenics, the encouraging of the breeding of real men and real women, Gomorrah Bechoros, and the vital preservation of the separate and distinct races which he has created. As Rav David Feinstein stated, each of the 70 nations has a unique national trait at which it excels, and which can be harnessed for Kedusha. All men have immortal souls. The Tselem Elokim latent in all of mankind's branches is meant to be accentuated, contrary to the fallacious theory of evolution. This evil theory propounds that, quote, the broad, flat nose, slanted profile of the Chamite face and their smaller average skull capacity places them closer to the anthropoid ape than to Homo sapiens, waxed Major Leonard Darwin, son of Charles Darwin. Evolution has spawned modern racism. Quote, Thomas Huxley, no rational man believes that the Chamite is the equal, still less the superior, of the Japhetics. History has repeatedly shown of the trouble caused by peoples misplaced from their lands. The Creator's put into the heart of every man an inherent love for his intended habitat, and elsewhere the benign influence of the supernal Sar, the angelic guardian of that land, will be lost on that individual. The ancient world dictator Sennacherib, was another one who attempted to unhinge this delicate spiritual order by a deliberate policy of dysgenics and race mix. Only the Am Yisrael are the exceptions to this rule, as they have a different divine destiny to be temporarily dispersed amongst the nations, where they become assets to their host nation, not liabilities like most others. Ve'hefitzcha Hashem b'chol ha'amim miktzeh ha'oretz v'ad ktzeh ha'oretz. The Lord will scatter you from one end of the earth to the other. Dvarim 28. Attempts to over-miscegenate the races has resulted in the opposite of the desired result. Once a certain limit is reached, a change to the opposite direction is inevitable, said the Chinese philosopher Confucius. Inevitable. By the world ignoring the Torah's teachings on the origin, nature, and destiny of the different races given in the Table of Nations, the present world racial balance is on a potentially disastrous knife edge. On the subject of the shidduch crisis, which reminds one of how none of the mitzvahs are hazardous. No commandment in the Torah is dangerous, except for one. The only one that by its very nature is inherently risky is that of milchemes mitzvah, i.e., death or injury is a possibility while performing this mitzvah of an obligatory war. Yet today one could possibly pose a shaila, a halachic question about another mitzvah, that of marriage. The divorce rate in the secular world is 60%. And even in the Orthodox world, it has recently risen from 6 to 8%. A point may one day be reached whereby entering into marriage carries with it such a sufficiently high possibility of divorce with all its unpleasant sequelae, for example, loss of reputation, detriment to mental and physical health, acrimony, lawyers based in secular law courts, physical fights, property fights, in-law fights, financial loss, misery, jail, having to flee a country, loss of emunah, etc., that it is literally becomes a case of sakonos nefashos, that marriage could become too dangerous to contemplate. The decline in feminine mystique and the feminist movement are partly to blame for the worsening state of affairs. As Rav Miller stated, quote, "Women have risen out of their place. They are meant to be first mates, eza kenegdo, not equal joint captains. A woman is not meant to be a joint captain. We may be in the Ikfas of the Mashiach, when there will be a gender role reversal, as Yirmiyah foretold, nekeva teshovev gever, a woman will seek out a man, with male neshomas being megalgel, reincarnated into female bodies, and vice versa, and where, in the footsteps of the Mashiach, a son will revile his father, a daughter will rise up against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's enemies will be the members of his own household. A frightening prediction from Gemara, Sota 49. Oive ish anshe beso. A man's worst enemies will be the members of his own family. Gewalt. The Sifrei Kates refer to a situation where everything in nature will one day cease to reproduce, including humans. As it says, Ein ben David bo ad sheyochlu kol neshama shebaguf. Ben David, the Mashiach, will not come until every soul has been brought down and placed in a body. Gemara Yevamos. I.e., a point may be reached when Pru Revu, being fruitful and multiply, is no longer required or even possible, with the Otsa HaNeshomas, the storehouse of souls under the Kisei HaKovod, literally having run dry. There are some fragile snowflake souls that are just not shaykh to the duress of marriage and Sar Gidel Bonim, the distress of raising children. And to live in intimate cheek and jowl proximity with another human for 50, 60 or 70 years, till death us do part, while some adore the idea, for others it is inconceivable. A ksuba, the marriage contract, contains legally binding conditions, clauses, sanctions and penalties. Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi warns, any man who doesn't read very carefully his marriage contract, his ksuba, very carefully before signing it, he has no business getting married. Some men balk at the extent of their liability. One of the phrases in the ksuba is, I will support my wife, afilu min glima da'al katafai, even to the extent of the shirt on my back. And these men, many of them, an increasing number, state, I'm not giving the shirt on my back to anyone, not even to my own wife. I'm not giving my shirt to any female. The Lubavitcher Rebbe wrote, it is written in the Holy Sforim, in particular in the Sifrei Kabbalah, that although one must do all that is necessary to fulfill the mitzvah of Pru Revu, there are certain cases of exception in which Hashem exempts one from doing so. The reason for this is because he has a different purpose in his life that Hashem has destined for him. Lubavitcher Rebbe, Likutei Sichos 15. And the Shlor states in the name of Rav Shlomo Alkabetz that Hashem sends certain souls into the world for a specific tikkun or leadership position which exempts them from having children. Exempted. The institution of marriage is becoming passé in the secular world and may be becoming literally extinct. Once the nuclear family is threatened and filial disrespect becomes rampant, then the very existence of the creation, the Bria, is in jeopardy. As Malachi, the last words of the last Novi, warned, he will turn back the heart of the fathers to the children and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with destruction. Pen avo vihikesi es ha'oretz cherem.